All right. Good morning to those of you in the West, and good afternoon to those of you in the East for this week's Level Up series. I am super excited to speak to our guest today. Our guest, Mr. Tom Keiser, is the CEO of Hootsuite. Tom Keiser joined Hootsuite as CEO in July 2020 when founder Ryan Holmes moved into the role of chairman of the board. Tom has over 30 years experience as a global business and technology leader. With a proven track record of transforming companies, prioritizing to realize value, and a passion for making things work better, Tom has a history of building teams and clearing the path for them to do great things. He excels at scaling a business through hypergrowth, placing an equal focus on people and on the customer experience. Prior to joining Hootsuite, Tom spent 4 years at Zendesk as COO, where he helped build the company into a $9 billion plus publicly traded company, the leader that it is today. Before finding a sweet spot in SaaS, Tom held top roles in both operations and IT at a major retail, finance, and tech companies, including the Gap, L Brands, Ernst Young, and Capgemini. Tom is a father, a husband, a traveler, an avid reader, a long-serving board member of Big Brothers and Big Sisters, a sports enthusiast, a fisherman, an art collector, and most impressive of all, I think, apparently has a pretty decent jump shot. Tom, from San Francisco, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Gary. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, listen, we're super excited. We know as a group there's such a massive movement to social media, and I mean you are literally at the forefront leading that social media movement. I know that Hootsuite has been recognized as one of the world's most widely used social media platform, and we're really excited about just hearing your thoughts on it today. But before we start, maybe you could just jump in and just give us a quick once over on Hootsuite and what it does, what it actually does for those of you that maybe don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Hootsuite's a 12-year-old company now, founded in Vancouver, a little over 1,000 employees globally, with about 600 in Canada between Vancouver and Toronto. We've got a little over 213,000 paying customers on our site that we're honored to provide capabilities and services to, and we have over 18 million users that have used our product and are some part of our freemium offering. And what we provide is a tool set that helps businesses and organizations navigate social media, giving them a kind of a one-stop shop on all of the different social media platforms, deeply integrating with those platforms so that they can easily publish, they can easily listen, and they can easily react to their customers, and a whole lot of analytics that help them navigate how to optimize the work that they're doing. We're a horizontal platform, so we've created these world-class capabilities that are available for the a single proprietor business all the way up to the largest businesses in the world. It's a very dynamic space. It's been super exciting for me to get involved in this space. I knew it would be dynamic, but I had no idea what I was getting in for when I got into this world of social media, and it's really exciting.
Well, I think you actually really started off as a user and a fan as well, because your days obviously where you came from before at Zendesk. Tell us about that, because I think you've been on the record quoting that Hootsuite and the use of social media was incredibly powerful in the growth of that operation.
Yeah, Zendesk is a customer service, customer experience software founded roughly at the same time. And when I joined Zendesk almost 6 years ago now, Zendesk was roughly the same size as Hootsuite is now from a revenue and from an employee base. And we went on a tear of growing from a $200 million company to $1 billion revenue company over that period of time, which was super exciting. And a lot of that was about evolving the idea of what customer service and the importance of customer service was to the overall message of the business, of how you communicated your message to the business, how you brought sales and marketing together, and really took customer service out of being a cost center and this thing that you had to do but you didn't really want to do, and turned it into a really valuable conversation that could be a sales opportunity, that could be a marketing opportunity, that could create a better experience and build more loyalty. And part of what we were doing there was upping our game around brand awareness, and we were doing a good bit of that with Hootsuite.
Well, and you know what? We're going to jump in and talk about a lot of things today. That brand awareness and the ability to use social as brand awareness is probably, you know, in my opinion, still vastly underutilized and such an opportunity. Before we look forward, let's sort of look back a little bit. March of last year, we're all talking about the pandemic, the global pandemic, and of course, you know, someone like you spent your life traveling, you know, all over North America. I think that's really changed many things about you and about how you operate. Has it had an impact on the use of social media? Are we using it more than ever before? Have we seen a big trend in consumer habits?
Yeah, it's, I mean, I think we all know we're using it more. I think you get your little report each week of your usage of time on your phone, and it's staggering how much. All of our studies show and reinforce that. We do a lot of, we put out several annual studies, and we've seen a dramatic increase of usage of social media platforms because people want to connect. People are, you know, they're in their homes, they're away from their family, they're away from their friends, they want to connect. And the social media platforms, while all different, are ways for them to connect. So the usage of social media has skyrocketed. Our last report that just came out in January showed that over half the world's population is on social media and active. And we're also seeing that really every age group is equally represented as well. And so the tendency has been to think of social media as a young person's platform, and innovation on social media to be for young people, and for businesses to really market and talk to folks on social media, treating them as young folks. And we're seeing a significant amount of baby boomers, Gen X, Y, and Z, all on social media, which is changing the way businesses are having to think about how they're leveraging social media and the messages that they're using. But the usage is up. We're also seeing the innovation on social media increasing as each of the platforms are competing. We're seeing, obviously here, I'm in the US, I'm in San Francisco. We just went through an election where social media was front and center in the election, for better and for worse.
Right.
We're seeing a lot of interest from governments around regulating, around the search for truth. There's just a tremendous amount of innovation and change going on in these platforms, which is exciting for us, representing hundreds of thousands of businesses and organizations and governments that want to navigate these platforms and feel safe and feel comfortable representing their brand and having dialogues with customers.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because as I was saying to you in the green room before the start of the show, I think I'm fairly engaged in social media, and as I was prepping for this call, I realized, oh my goodness, we are dropping the ball. I mean, where the value of social media in our lives, both personally, but mostly professionally, is profound. Speaking about social media today, guys, any of you that are tuned in, if you have any questions, like always, please send them in. Dave will look at those questions and make sure they come across the screen so we can ask those questions that are most helpful to you, to Tom. And also, as always, any social media comments, postings, tagging, we are going to send out at least 50 of these Saving Social books. Really, really good book, easy to read, written by the founder and chairman today of Hootsuite, a Vancouver guy. I met Ryan several years ago in a quiet social setting. Just a wonderful guy and just an incredible leader. So super excited to send that out. And what's that been like for you, Tom? Sort of transitioning into a very large organization right now that was primarily founder led for a lot of years. Is that difficult? Is that something that that's been a challenge for you?
Well, Ryan's a great leader. This is my third founder that I've actually worked with and worked for, so I'm comfortable with working with founders. The weird dynamic that we have is we've never actually met.
Wow.
Everything's been done via video. My recruiting and interview process, the onboarding process, and obviously since I started, we've been in a pandemic, so it just hasn't been possible to meet, which, you figure out how to build connection and trust through that. But it's a little odd.
Yeah.
It's a little, but he's a great guy. He's been very, very supportive, clearly a visionary. The vision it took to put this thing together and to create such a iconic brand and a set of values and a culture and a company and launch it the way that it has, and the success the company has had is all a testament to him and his vision and leadership. And he's an innovator, and you can see that in the book as he digests some of the big challenges around social media and the opportunities and what that can actually mean. So it's great having him in my corner. He's the chairman of our board. We interact frequently, but from a distance.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Incredible. But it just has really demonstrated to us in the last year of just how much more we can do, and how everything in our world has changed. And it was, obviously, highlighted in these last 12 months. So
Right.
maybe I can just ask you for, a blunt assessment to anyone here today that is saying, well, I'm too old. I'm in my 50s. I didn't grow up. I'm not using social media. I don't have, any social media accounts. I don't know. It's too complicated. I don't need it. I do business the old way, face to face. What would you say to those people?
I think you're missing a tremendous opportunity, and you're likely losing market share and not necessarily recognizing it. The tools and the evolution of social media from really just being a place where people like us met up with people that we were interested in or that we had a previous connection with and shared has evolved really rapidly over the last handful of years. And the amount of listening the amount you can learn from listening, the targets that you can create, geographical targets, preference targets, to really connect into communities of people who are interested in your product or your idea. There's no other place like it. And the pandemic has accelerated not just the use of social media, but also the passion and the interest of people on social media, and the thinking on social media to bring together this perfect storm where events aren't happening, traditional kind of advertising and connection points. The way that people have watched and consumed TV has changed dramatically with streaming and really eliminating a lot of advertisements. And that was just illustrated as, for all who watched the Oprah Winfrey interview with the Royals, it's like, holy cow, like watching TV with commercials is awful. It's just it's terrible. And so these classic and traditional ways of which brands of all sizes have connected with their community, their customers and their prospects has been completely upended. And everyone is on social media that you want to reach. Businesses are on social media, consumers are on social media. And so really putting deep thought into how to connect, how to participate, how to represent your brand, which can be scary. Some of these sites are terrifying of how quickly things can spin out of control, which means you've got to stay on it. But you can do this with relatively few people when you're leveraging powerful tools like what Hootsuite provides.
Well, it's interesting because there's been I think it's a 20-year report or something, but it's been an incredible report. And I think it's cited in something I read of Ryan's as well, but it's the Edelman Trust Barometer report. Yeah. And in that report, it says, people grant their trust on two distinct attributes. Number one, the competency. You have to be able to actually deliver on the promise and do the job. Right. But number two is the ethical behavior and doing the right thing and working to improve society. And social media now is the prevailing platform for expressing, exploring, and vetting, individual and company values. So, having said that, I mean, it's interesting because anyone who is not engaging or not learning it right now, it is having a profound impact on whether people are choosing you or choosing to do business. Any comments around, those two items, competence and ethical behavior?
Yeah, I think, it's it your values end up showing through pretty clearly on social media, and you it can be defined for you. When things go awry, or you can be out in front of it and be your real self. And so I think it's really important. And unfortunately, a lot of us, including me, learn by fire, and a lot of the time that fire is a social media misstep in some way, that creates a misinterpretation of what you're trying to represent. So I think being super clear on your values, and you're seeing a lot of companies, including our own, going back and revisiting the values and the principles of their companies and saying, are these enough for the times that we're in today, that really articulates what we stand for, that's authentic and is real and actionable for our employees, for our customers, for our stakeholders to really understand who we are and where we stand. We're all experiencing a younger workforce coming in that expects that of the businesses that they're a part of, and they're coming in with the mindset around they want to work for companies that share their values. And they also come in with a perspective completely different than the workforce that I came into, where you came into the workforce and you conformed to the values of the company. And if you didn't agree with those values, you left. It didn't occur to you to
Yeah.
speak up and say, I don't agree with this. You just moved on, as opposed to the younger workforce is coming in with, I don't agree with this, I think we should change this perspective from every level of the business. And so companies need to be dynamic in how they think and address those, so that they can truly be, by being clear on what those values and principles are, they can be true to those and represent those out. And social media is such a great tool for that, but it can also expose you if you're not clear on that.
Well, it's interesting though. It can expose you, but it's interesting because years ago when we had a new value proposition and we wanted to tell somebody or share some good news with somebody, we pick up the phone, and it would take us a long time to call our customers, right? Days, weeks. Now we just simply do a post online. There was a recent episode, and it was also referenced in the homework. Talk about Elon Musk, and he made the critical faux pas last year, March 6th, early days of the pandemic, where he said the coronavirus panic is dumb. And I mean, here's a guy who is beloved. This guy is a maverick, and the social media community took him to task in a very, very, very short period of time. So much so, and this is the power of it, where I don't know what it was, Tom, maybe 9 or 10 days later, he came out and said, whoa, I was completely wrong. He absolutely owned it. He said, I'm so sorry. And he actually worked with the mayor of New York and said, we're going to now actually build ventilators with you. So very, very good expression of how you can communicate. But just like anything else, we're going to do and say dumb things once in a while and make mistakes. So the key with social media, I think, is my takeaway from this, is that you have to be very honest and very, very truthful and vulnerable. And, when you make a mistake, own it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, especially on some of the sites, there's a lot of opportunity for the sites to pick up their game around like who's on the site and what they're using the site for. There is a lot of misinformation on the site, and there's a lot of trolling on the sites for all kinds of reasons, many that are beyond any of our understanding. So you've got to pick what's important as well when you're in those dialogues, especially when you get in those firestorms, as to what's important to you, what's important to your brand and company. But no, that's a great example. Elon Musk wields tremendous power, and we're seeing that in the stock market right now, just with the slightest of statements around a company, around all of his positioning on Bitcoin or on his own companies. I mean, he swings markets, and that's it's hard to measure what that influence is worth, but we see the power of it when it's potentially used for something negative or a misstep along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we talk about social media, assets, and obviously there's all the LinkedIn, the Instagram, and the Facebook, the new and latest and greatest is TikTok. I'd love to hear your thoughts around that. Are we expecting to see a lot more? Is one better than the other? Does one need to? And I'm thinking from a franchise owner in a community in anywhere in North America, us, Canada. Is there a platform that at the very basic, one or two or three, in your opinion, they need to be on?
Yeah, it really depends on your business and what you're trying to accomplish. Facebook has built a tremendous set of capabilities for small businesses to really advertise into their communities and to advertise into active Facebook participants that are in those communities. So it's a simple and it's easy tool set that's very very powerful. We live in a day and age now with how e-commerce has evolved really rapidly, and Shopify, a fantastic Canadian company, is enabling a lot of this. Local brands, local concepts can go global very, very quickly and be enabled by technologies very quickly. And you're seeing small brands, and I know I see here in San Francisco constantly, small brands that will try a concept out and then very quickly go global, and they'll leverage perhaps some of the bigger platforms, not bigger than Facebook, but more globalized platforms that reach more people. So Instagram has turned into a really powerful tool set for brands and for products that have a more universal set of capabilities. Like, I love Tom Petty, God bless his soul. And so Instagram follows me around with whatever, concept of Tom Petty is coming around, and I invariably hit the button and buy it. And Shopify is underneath that. Some brand person has come up with a cool t-shirt or some cool product, and they know, and they're targeting me, and I don't know where that is or what it's doing, but it's a small business that's up underneath that. TikTok has demonstrated, how quickly tastes can change in social media, and how quickly you can build a really dominant platform if you put the right technologies, the right innovation, the right algorithms together. They created a very, very sticky platform that initially, we made fun of our teenage kids over. They were using it, they were creating things on it. It's turned into an e-commerce platform. It's turned into a marketing platform. It's turned into a really innovative money-making machine. And it just demonstrates how quickly a really thoughtful approach and something that people value and enjoy can turn into something very, very large very quickly and disrupt platforms. I think we're waiting to see what becomes of Twitter and all of this. Twitter has been kind of the place where everyone comes to either be a part of community and share or to shout. But it's quite a mix of a place. It's where you go for the news, in a lot of ways. But it's been a place that has been less successful with businesses, and you see that in their ad dollars. Businesses, you got to listen to what's going on Twitter about your brand, about your product, and respond to that. It's very much a platform of complaints that you need to be on top of. But what are the services, and how can it be safe for businesses? I think it's still in front of Twitter to figure out for businesses, and they've been primarily focused on community or individuals and individual connections and so forth. And there's just platform after platform that have different specialized set of capabilities. And I think the power of a product like what we have at Hootsuite is it allows you to try things. Like, you don't have to make a giant bet. You can make a really light bet, and you can try things on different platforms from one cockpit, from one set of content, and see what's most effective for your business.
Well, that's exactly where I was going. It's, people go, I don't know. How do I communicate on all of them? And who are the major ones? And I mean, you guys deliver that product. You solve that problem, right? Yeah. So it's great. So certainly we'll go into more of that. It's interesting because we talked about sort of the use of social media now, 4.2 billion people on the planet, right? More than half the world's population. And I would estimate, so if you just say that's 50% plus, I would estimate in, sort of, where the miss of people aren't using it frequently would be the sort of like the third world, countries. But it must be much higher than 50% in sort of Canada and the US. And the reason why I make that point is there again, I want to drive the point home on how vital it is to get and start using social media. And the other last point that I'll make for your comments on here is that you can start simply by just entering conversations, right, that other people are having. So I'd like your sort of thoughts around those comments.
Yeah, to your last point there, I think, we've on our Hootsuite site, you can go through, there's all kinds of research and training capabilities, but a big mistake that we see businesses make is not listening and truly listening and being thoughtful about where to participate in a conversation, as opposed to trying to kind of muscle in and manage and lead a conversation. And it's really important that you understand the nuance of that if you're going to make really relevant and useful connections on social media. It's just a very different mindset than the traditional advertising mindset at an event or on TV or in a magazine where you're pushing a bold statement out and you're not really open for conversation. These are real conversations that are happening with real people, mostly out there on these sites. And if you're going to be relevant and you see great examples and you see terrible examples out there, you've got to really listen and be thoughtful and thinking about your brand and what your brand stands for and what your company stands for as to when and how to participate, to be helpful, and to be authentic, which I think is really interesting. I think if you look at the global population of who's using social and how they're using it, it's definitely different around the world. But you do see in different company or countries how the evolution is taking place differently. And we've seen this kind of over and over again. We saw this with as cell phones rolled out and then as smartphones rolled out, as the internet rolled out. You can skip steps along the way, which allows you to create different kinds of experiences and value in different markets. And so the social media platforms have a role in doing that. And you're seeing them turn into all kinds of commerce and payments types of plays, healthcare plays, all kinds of things like that. But you're also seeing the messaging platforms, dominated by WhatsApp. But there's you go country by country, especially in Asia Pacific and in Africa, you can go country by country and there are dominant messaging platforms where everyone is, we think of, like, from the US, texting was where we started. And many of those countries, they're starting with a messaging platform, and the commerce and the exchanges with the companies that they do business with look a lot like and feel a lot like the same kind of conversations that they're having with their friends and with their family. And you're seeing financial and banking kind of functions arrive there. You're seeing all kinds of travel oriented things arrive there. So messaging platforms, along with these social platforms, depending on where you're doing business in the world, are super critical for businesses to be plugged into. And platforms like ours, or who are working with global companies, have built all of those connections and continue to try to stay in front of the next ones that are coming up, so that those capabilities are available to businesses and organizations.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody that we're giving away 50 copies, guys. Send in your comments or questions. Incredible book. David, there was a question that you sent me a couple, but one was around AI and bots. Can you put the question on the screen, please? Just tuning in, would love perspective about how the networks are using their AI for misinformation and what people can do to protect themselves. There are many cases of the bots banning accounts. It happened to me for no reason as a result of their AI deciding something you said was against their policy, taken out of context. Of course, protecting your social media asset is key, and having a backup plan is crucial. Any comments for Brittany, who actually runs a very, very good social media marketing company?
No, it's a great question. I think for any of us who've been active on social, we've tripped a bot and been banned at some point. It happens quite frequently on
Right.
Facebook. Um, I think what we're seeing is the how far these bots have to go to be effective. If you assume positive intent from these platforms, the platforms are trying to step up their game, and we've seen this pick up in the last 6 months around as much as possible making sure that the content on their sites is factual, and it's a somewhat impossible task, but there's danger in the misinformation that is out there on those sites and how that misinformation is being consumed and believed. And this is where we're seeing governmental regulation starting to come in as place. But all of the platforms are working on kind of what those rules are. The rules are of engagement. There's manual labor, and there's bots going into trying to navigate this and make the right decisions. And frequently they're making kind of yes, no decisions on specific types of content. And that's what a lot of us will get wrapped up in. There's no good an easy way around it. I think staying informed, because all of these platforms policies are continuing. These are living. Their policies are continuing to change and adjust. And all of these platforms allow for you can set up as many IDs as you want, and that's frequently the workaround that you have to do. When you get banned, you just move to
another ID.
Another ID. Yeah. I would imagine that this is going to be it's going to be a bigger and bigger issue, over the next few years until the platforms are really defined around and have a much clearer point of view around this. And some of this is the point of Ryan's book as well, as we're still, for these platforms to have grown to the size they are and have as many of us out there communicating the way they are, we're still in early days. Even though we're a decade into this, it's still early days of what these platforms are going to become and how we really build trust, how we really build confidence in the content that we're seeing on them.
Yeah, we're going to jump to that actually. Chapter 3, Trust Through Transparency, in the book that we're going to be giving away today. There is 5 pro tips. And if you're okay with Tom, I'm going to read all 5 pro tips that the book speaks of, that Ryan speaks of. And I would like your thoughts on these tips, because I thought he summarized them incredibly well. So the first pro tip, talking about trust through transparency, is own your narrative before the media or somebody else, another company, hijacks it.
Yeah, it's this is a difficult one, and because this is these social media platforms are live. You're living in real time, and so it means that to own the narrative, you've got to be out in front of it, but you've also got to have the tools and processes in place, the listening in place to something that's spinning up about your brand or product, that you can react quickly. And you go back a decade, every large company had a crisis management set of processes that went along with their communications. And those processes, were in days. They were measured in days and weeks as to how you responded to things. In the world of social media, it's minutes. And things spin up very, very quickly and can spin out of control very, very quickly. And so you've got to have plans, and you got to practice those plans to be able to respond to them. But that means you've got to be listening to the platforms and paying attention to what's going on around them, or you'll wake up a day or 2 days later, or a month or 2 months later, and wonder where my business went. And a bad review happened and someone piled on that, or maybe there was some misinformation from a competitor that came after you and has had a material impact on your business. And you just see that kind of thing happening over and over again. So you've got to pay attention.
Yeah. So you've said a few times today in this call so far, listening, and that's so valuable, right? And so a small business owner, they're listening by obviously participating, being on there, but also having somebody internally, obviously, that is, monitoring, those channels. Is that sort of the first line of defense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you want your employees out there on the sites and feeling like they're brand ambassadors as well, and they can be
Mm.
eyes and ears as well. But the tooling is there, and it's more sophisticated than ever to help you with that.
Mm. Well, I'm super lucky that way because I have the very, very best, team across the country, and they're all active, and we do lots of sharing. So thank you, gang. The second sort of pro tip is know your position in your tribe. Don't try to be all things to all people. Find your audience and make them yours.
Yeah, this is about being. I think as if we think about how social started and how the big brands entered, they thought about it kind of like big media before, radio and then TV and then email. You're blasting your message out to the world, and I think that's proven to be pretty ineffective. And so the idea is to be much more targeted, and what you get on social media is these creations of these communities of all different types of interest, and these communities are powerful in that people are actively participating and sharing and learning from each other. And if your brand or product can find these communities and participate, not blast them, but actually participate, add value to the conversation, to be honest about your product and what it does and doesn't work. There's a loyalty that comes along with that we've seen, business after business be super successful with in building their business. And it can help you really identify the problems that your business really needs to solve as well, as opposed to maybe the belief that you had when you started your business of what you were solving. It's how do you evolve that?
Yeah, it makes so much sense. The third pro tip is walk the talk. Social media has greatly expanded our ability to share and to access information, which has sharpened consumers' bullshit detectors. This has resulted in backlash for brands who don't say what they do, then do what they say. You want to comment on that? Because it ties right back into the Edelman trust barometer, right? Of ethical behavior and doing the right things and actually delivering on your promise.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get called on it if you're not true to what your brand says for it. Even if you're true to it, you may get called on it as people disagree with the values that your business stands on. And yeah, it's the beauty of the platforms. The platforms are about connecting and communicating, and you're not always going to like what you're hearing. They can be very supportive, and that can feel very good, but you're going to get criticism. It's going to be direct, and some of it's going to be super helpful and useful. And frequently, and I've had to learn this as I've stepped deeper into social media. You may not agree with it, and you can state your what you do believe in, but entering into the argument against someone else's beliefs as to why that's different is quicksand as well. And so you've got to find the right balance on how to engage in the conversation and recognize what you can do, which is stating what you believe in and standing behind that, and admitting if you're wrong or if you misstepped, but not necessarily debating someone else's reality and their belief.
Yeah, makes so much sense. Fourth one, empower customers with data and information. Consumers are smarter than ever, and if you don't treat them as equals, they'll also go elsewhere very quickly in a heartbeat.
Yeah, we've seen this coming for a while. Like, the businesses that we interact with, like each of us individually each day, especially if we have been a customer for a while, we expect them to know us. We expect them, no matter if you're talking to a salesperson, or someone in a store, someone in marketing, someone in customer support, you expect your data and your interactions with that brand to be front and center of the person that you're talking to. And you really don't have to care which department that data is stuck into. And we saw that, from traditional e-commerce online, and as that moved to mobile, and as things evolved from a customer service and from an email and from a messaging standpoint. And we're seeing that evolve now across the social platforms as well. People expect, with the businesses they interact with, to know them. People expect innovative ideas to come from that data back to them. And so social is another gigantic channel where you can even gather more precise information. So you can be more specific to specific customers, not just targeting them, but being able to answer their questions and injecting things of value to them.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. And then last, we sort of talked about it a little bit. We gave the example of Elon Musk, but he says, "Fess up when you get it wrong. We all make mistakes."
Yeah, and you need to do it quick too. There's just no,
right.
And it's hard. I think if you look at the way companies have traditionally responded or not responded to making mistakes, it's hard to own up to those mistakes and to take the pummeling that you're going to take with it. But ultimately, it reinforces that you're a company made up of real people, and that you've built your company around values, and sometimes you make mistakes, and you're going to own up to them, and that helps kind of reinforce loyalty that comes from your customers.
I want to make a comment on what Tom just said. The first thing he said, "and do it quick." Boy, I explain this to people all the time. I can't tell you, if you get caught in a crossfire or debate, or you get caught in any social, challenging conversation, I say to our team, sprint towards the problem. Don't just say, hopefully tomorrow, a day or two, it'll cool down, it'll go away, right? Even if you solve the problem, if it's a week or a month or 3 or 4 days late, even though they might be happy that you solved it and found your way, you're still going to do immense damage because you didn't respond quick enough. You have inflamed the situation. Right. So, that is so valuable in social. And if you are getting into a social, debate or argument, or you're being, piled on, at least have your voice with vulnerability and explain your situation. Yeah. At least you can be heard. They can make decisions otherwise. So I love that point. Be quick. Yeah, very good. So Tom, talk to us about the world's changing. It's changing in business. We see this huge movement, of the empowerment around female leadership. We're learning faster than ever before of just, how much this market has been underrepresented in business for years. It's terrible. I know you just recently did a talk. We're talking about social transformation, but the roles of leader. And I know you just did a very, what I understand, engaging talk around the power of the female leadership on LinkedIn. Can you tell us your perspective on that? A little bit about what you talked about?
Yeah, in tech, I've experienced this since I got to San Francisco. The world of tech is very male, and you see it at kind of every level of tech. And tech's been working hard at trying to balance this, but moving way too slowly. This Hootsuite role that I'm in, the CEO role, this is my first CEO role, which allows me to shape some things a little differently than the roles that I've been able to do previously. And I'm pretty simple about how I try to put together problem statements, but my simple problem statement is, half the world's women.
Right.
Like half our business should be female. And so, and trying to lead by example around that, and, working hard as I'm building out my leadership team to get representation of female leaders. I've had the benefit over my career, like my first boss of my first job after college was a Black woman. And so I've had the opportunity to work for women. My decade plus in retail, apparel retail, it was 65 to 70% women. So I've had a real opportunity before coming into tech of having a different experience. And so I'm not making it a big deal, but it is a significant part of my leadership approach, is building out teams and being a well represented team, so that we've got the right perspectives around the table. And so the conversation we had last Friday, and we're trying to do one each Friday, was with some of my executive leadership team leaders and having a conversation around women in leadership and where we are and what some of the big challenges are. And it was with our chief people officer and our head of global sales. So a really great conversation. We have one coming up this Friday with some of our younger female employees, and we're trying to do this more globally as well to really just have a good open dialogue around the challenges that they see in the workplace and in their experiences, and how they're approaching it, how they're overcoming it. And each of these conversations, I come away with so many learnings. And it's, I think, and you're seeing a vulnerability and ability to listen out of leaders right now like never before. And I very much want to be a leader like that as well.
Yeah, I think we all do. And I think we can all do a much better job. And I know that, your talk was, I think, on International Women's Day too, as well. So congratulations to all the women, just celebrate International Women's Day. But that's really cool. That's something I think are really moving, the industry, the world is moving, so much more forward now, and it's about time. And I think we're all really excited about it. Okay, a couple more things as we sort of, wind down the last few minutes. So, and it's about leadership. So talking to, people, small groups, small companies, big companies, is there a couple, like tenets, 1, 2, 3 things that you think leadership looks like? Like, how do you define leadership from your perspective?
Yeah, it's evolved as I've gotten older. I came up through the consulting ranks where, I was solving problems with blunt force, driving changes to resolve some set of problems. And so as I've stepped into executive roles, I've had to learn along the way. I mean, to me, the big thing about a leader and being a credible leader is being able to listen and listen really, really carefully, and to be able to identify kind of what the problems or obstacles are for the organization to accomplish what it needs to accomplish, and getting those out of the way. It's that. If you start doing that, you build credibility. People are able to do their jobs. They're able to hit their numbers. They're able to do the things they need to do. And that buys you the right to then be able to start really laying out the strategy of where you want to go. But it's as simple as identifying the problem, hearing the problem, not solving the problem you think, but solving the problem that your people can see in front of you, getting it out of the way and clearing the path for them to go be able to do great things.
Yeah, excellent answer. It's so important. That listening skill. You've heard the adage many times. We have, one mouth and 2 ears. There's a reason for that. So we listen twice
Absolutely.
as much. And it's really interesting to hear you talk about the need for listening online as well and via social. Absolutely incredible. So Tom, what do you read? So when you look for personal development, what does Tom Keiser, who's running this huge organization right now and is in the ground zero for deployment of social media communication, where do you get your personal development from?
I've been fortunate. I've worked in quite a few places. I've got a lot of friends and colleagues and former bosses that I stay connected with. That's kind of a constant source of free feedback. I'm married to a person who has been a chief people officer in multiple companies, and she has no hesitation of providing me feedback really quickly. I've got 3 teenagers. They provide very direct feedback.
Sure,
and then I read a lot. I wake up early. I read a lot. I listen to podcasts. I think you can't be a leader, especially in the space that I'm in right now, without being in kind of a continuous learning and a continuous questioning, quite frankly, of the things you're focusing on, and then the way you're leading your company. There's no arrival where you're done. It never ends.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: is sort of online real estate going to be much more value than sort of real, sort of bricks and mortar real estate and business going forward. I mean, obviously we've seen a prolific spike this year. I'm getting 15 packages a week delivered at my house. 1 year ago, my wife Kelly didn't know how to, order online. I mean, how valuable is that space? I mean, how important is it? Like, it's not too late to get started, because you said we're still early days in your opinion.
Yeah.
But I guess the better question for you is, if I'm sitting here and I haven't done a very good job, how do I get started today on social media? Where do I start? What do I do? What's the low hanging fruit?
Yeah. I mean, from a social media standpoint, like one of the things that we have built out at Hootsuite is a Hootsuite Academy. It's like a little certification process where you go through some training and you can get yourself certified. And, we see that happening in high school classes. We see college classes picking that up, and Hootsuite becoming part of college programs. It's out there, it's available, and people should take advantage of that from a kind of a guidance and getting your brain really thinking and getting you on the platform. Our platform, like many SaaS platforms, is a free try and buy. So you can go set up your own free instance and go to town on our platform and to really get a look and feel for it as well. But to answer your question, e-commerce, I think, if we think about the delivery services that moved from kind of a nice to have, a restaurant delivery, grocery delivery, to moving to kind of near a necessity during this pandemic while we've been locked in our houses. I think that will only continue to evolve and be disrupted as you try to, there's really, all companies are trying to solve the convenience factor of how can you take friction out and make things easier for people, and how do you create a better experience? And while Amazon has a massive lead on everyone, and Shopify has a massive lead from kind of the underpinnings of small business, there's still tons of room for disruption and creating better experiences. Technology is evolving, platforms are evolving, the use of data is evolving. All of how we interact with technologies and work it into our lives is evolving. There's enormous opportunities to continue to disrupt.
Wow, what a very interesting conversation today. I can't thank you enough, Tom. It's interesting because we know social media is intimately being integrated into every fabric of our life, and we know that there's this mass global recalibration going on right now. And to speak to you, and I'm going to personally take this clipping and sit by myself and go through it and just take the steps away. A couple questions we didn't get to, but that's okay. I'm going to be giving away these books, guys. You'll be seeing them in the mail. On behalf of our entire team, all of our listeners, the Level Up series, and our sponsor to the program, First National, just an absolute great partner in the Canadian financial landscape. I just want to express to you and your team for helping us put this together, Tom, how grateful we are to have you part of our program today.
Thank you so much, Gary. This was a ton of fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And what I'll get you to stay on. Just a very quick shout out, guys. You're going to see some lead up stories coming to it. 2 weeks, we have Brittany Hennessy. Brittany is the best-selling author of Influencer, also really targeted around building a personal brand in the age of social media. She's co-founder of the Carbon August, an influencer education company where she creates courses, provides coaching, and produces events to help influencers of all shapes and sizes build their brands and business. And if you guys haven't sort of identified over the next few weeks, it is really our focus on really getting all of you engaged and using and becoming better at social media. Look for that free program at Hootsuite, that free try and buy. It is an awesome platform, guys. It makes it so simple rather than navigating 3 or 4. So with that, thank you to my agents, my owners, my offices, lenders, partners, suppliers, anyone out there we're broadcasting to, and most importantly, to you, Tom, and the group, the gang, all of you at Hootsuite. Thank you. Have a great day, guys.